History is not always the story you were taught. We are about to journey through 25 of the wildest, most mind-bending theories that just might be true, from ancient technological marvels to modern disappearances that defy explanation. By the end, you will possess a collection of historical mysteries that challenge the very foundations of our past. What if a legendary sunken city was a real place wiped from memory? Could a medieval manuscript be a genuine guide to a forgotten world? The answers are stranger than fiction. What part of the past do you secretly hope we got completely wrong? The most enduring of all historical mysteries begins with a single man's story. The philosopher Plato, writing around 360 BC, described a powerful and advanced island nation called Atlantis. He claimed it existed 9,000 years before his own time, a civilization of immense wealth and sophisticated technology that ultimately angered the gods. In a single terrible day and night, he wrote, the entire island was swallowed by the sea and vanished. For centuries, this was treated as a moral fable, a cautionary tale about hubris. But what if Plato was recording a distorted memory of a real cataclysm? The search for a factual Atlantis has led explorers to some startling corners of the globe. One of the strongest candidates lies in the Aegean Sea. The island of Thera, now known as Santorini, was home to the sophisticated Minoan civilization. Around 1600 BC, a volcanic eruption of almost unimaginable scale obliterated the island's center, creating the massive caldera we see today. The resulting tsunamis would have devastated coastal settlements across the region, including those on Crete. This event matches Plato's description of a sudden, violent end for an advanced sea power, preserved in myth for centuries before reaching his ears. Yet others look beyond the Mediterranean. Some point to the Richat structure in Mauritania, a striking circular formation in the Sahara Desert visible from space. Its concentric rings eerily mirror Plato's description of Atlantis's capital city. While geologists confirm it is a natural, eroded dome, the theory suggests a much older, greener Sahara could have hosted such a civilization, its story later transplanted to the ocean by generations of storytellers. More speculative locations range from the Caribbean to Antarctica, each interpretation bending the clues to fit a new map. The compelling part is not finding a perfect match but recognizing a pattern. Cataclysmic events like volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and rising sea levels have reshaped our world and erased cultures. Atlantis endures because it represents a universal human fear and perhaps a memory of a brilliant world lost beneath the waves. We are not just looking for an island, we are listening for an echo. Plato's lost city invites us to question timelines, but our next mystery stands in plain sight, daring us to reconsider everything we know about ancient Egypt. The Great Sphinx of Giza, that majestic lion with a pharaoh's face, is traditionally dated to the reign of Khafre around 2500 BC. Yet, staring directly at its weathered body, some researchers see a story written not by pharaohs but by millennia of reign. The conventional history feels solid, but geology might tell a different tale. Enter the controversial Sphinx water erosion hypothesis. Geologist Robert Schoch, after examining the monument in the early 1990s, pointed to the deep, vertical, undulating channels carved into the limestone walls of the Sphinx enclosure. This type of weathering, he argued, was not caused by wind and sand, the primary forces in the arid Egyptian climate for the last 5,000 years. Instead, it closely resembled patterns created by prolonged, heavy rainfall, the kind that would have drenched the region during a much earlier, greener period. To understand the scale of this claim, we must look at the climate data. Egypt's last notably wet phase, known as the Neolithic subpluvial, ended around the middle of the 3rd millennium BC. But Schoch and others propose the erosion on the Sphinx suggests an even older, more intense period of precipitation. potentially pushing its origins back to 7,000 or even 10,000 years ago, a time before the rise of dynastic Egypt as we know it. This theory, of course, ignited a firestorm in academic circles. Egyptologists firmly defend the Old Kingdom attribution, citing archaeological context, the style of the sculpture, and its clear alignment with Khufu's pyramid complex. They offer alternative explanations for the erosion, such as groundwater seepage or the effects of wind carrying abrasive particles. The debate is a classic clash of disciplines, archaeology versus geology, each interpreting the same stones through a different lens. Visual evidence is striking. Side-by-side comparisons of the Sphinx's weathered flanks with known water erosion patterns elsewhere show haunting similarities, these deep grooves that seem to flow downward like frozen rivers. If the geological interpretation is correct, the implications are staggering. It would mean a highly sophisticated culture capable of monumental sculpture existed in the Nile Valley thousands of years earlier than recorded history admits, a culture whose name and achievements were utterly lost to time. The Sphinx then becomes more than a guardian of a pharaoh's tomb. It transforms into a silent sentinel from a forgotten age, its stone body bearing the scars of a world that vanished when the rain stopped. This theory does not just ask us to redate a statue, it asks us to reimagine the dawn of civilization itself. What other monuments might be holding their true age in secret, written in a language of erosion we are only just learning to read? A forgotten language whispers from the pages of the world's most unreadable book. The Voynich Manuscript, a 240-page parchment codex, has defied every attempt at translation for over a century. Its script is entirely unique, flowing in an elegant yet alien hand, accompanied by illustrations of plants that exist nowhere on Earth, nude women bathing in strange green liquid, and intricate astrological charts that follow no known system. The central question is deceptively simple. Is this an elaborate medieval hoax, a complex cipher protecting alchemical secrets, or could it be a genuine record of a lost way of seeing the world? For decades, the codebreaker hypothesis dominated. Military cryptographers from both world wars, modern computer scientists, and legions of amateur sleuths have attacked the text, applying every known method of decryption. The result has always been the same: frustrating failure. The manuscript's internal structure possesses a statistical profile eerily similar to natural languages, with word lengths and character frequencies that follow predictable rules, yet it yields no meaning. This very consistency led a growing number of linguists and researchers to a radical alternative. What if it is not a code at all? The theory proposes the Voynich script is a phonetic transcription of a now extinct vernacular language, perhaps from a small, isolated region whose culture and tongue vanished without a trace. A scribe, possibly the only person literate in this system, may have attempted to preserve local knowledge, herbal lore, and cosmological beliefs using a writing system invented for the task. The bizarre plants would not be fantastical inventions, but stylized or misunderstood depictions of real regional flora, their true identities lost when the oral tradition that explained them died out. Recent computational analyzers add weight to this idea. Advanced studies of the text's patterns suggest it has the linguistic fingerprints of a genuine, structured communication system, not random gibberish. Certain pages show a clear, organized layout reminiscent of a practical herbal or a physician's manual, with paragraphs of text neatly associated with specific illustrations of roots and leaves. The famous bathing women, often called the nymphs, might represent a folk remedy or a spiritual cleansing ritual, their green bath symbolizing a medicinal or sacred pool. Then there are the astronomical sections, circular diagrams adorned with miniature suns, moons, and stars arranged in configurations that could track local seasonal cycles or mythic events. If this theory is correct, the Voynich manuscript becomes something far more poignant than a puzzle. it transforms into a ghost, the last surviving echo of a complete intellectual tradition. Every undecipherable word is a piece of lost history, every impossible plant a memory of a real meadow that vanished centuries ago. We are not looking at a deception, but a tragedy of preservation, a book that saved the form of knowledge but allowed its meaning to perish. This shifts the fundamental challenge. The task is no longer to crack a code, but to resurrect a dead language with no Rosetta Stone to guide us. The manuscript sits silently in Yale University's Voynich Library, holding its secrets tight. It asks us a profound question: how do we recognize truth when we have forgotten the language in which it is written? While the Voynich Manuscript hints at lost knowledge, another artifact pulled from the sea offers undeniable proof of an ancient genius we almost missed. In the year 1900, sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon a Roman-era shipwreck littered with statues and treasure. Among the corroded bronze and marble emerged a lump of green, calcified fragments that seemed like worthless junk. Decades later, as the crust was carefully removed, researchers saw something impossible: a complex clockwork of interlocking bronze gears. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so advanced it rewrote our understanding of ancient science. For over a century, this enigmatic object has been studied with increasingly sophisticated tools, from X-rays to three-dimensional surface imaging. What they revealed is astonishing. The mechanism contained at least 30 precise, hand-cut bronze gears housed in a wooden case the size of a large shoebox. By turning a hand crank on the side, a user could operate a kind of mechanical computer. Dials and pointers would move across inscribed plates, predicting the positions of the sun and moon, the phases of the lunar cycle, and even the dates of upcoming solar and lunar eclipses. It could track the irregular orbit of the moon with a special pin and slot device that accounted for its varying speed, a level of astronomical understanding not thought to exist for another 1,000 years. To see it in operation through modern 3D animation is to witness a ghost of Hellenistic engineering. The gears, shining like new bronze, engage with a quiet, meshing precision. The pointers sweep across finely engraved zodiac and calendar scales, displaying a moving model of the cosmos as the Greeks understood it. One dial even tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. This was not a tool for navigation, but a sophisticated demonstrator, a philosopher's instrument for teaching and calculating celestial events. Its very existence begs a monumental question: who built it? The leading theory points towards the legendary school of Archimedes in Syracuse. The mechanism's complexity and its blend of mathematical astronomy and precision engineering are hallmarks of the kind of work Archimedes was famed for. Ancient texts mention him creating planetariums, celestial globes that moved to show the heavens. Could this device be a descendant of his designs, perhaps crafted by his followers in the century after his death? The ship carrying it was bound for Rome, possibly as loot following the Roman conquest of Greece, suggesting it was a prized and valuable object. The implications are profound. The Antikythera Mechanism is not a singular miracle. It is a surviving fragment of a technological tradition. To create such a device required not just one brilliant mind, but a community of knowledge, craftsmen who could cast such fine gears, mathematicians who could calculate the tooth counts, and astronomers who provided the data. This implies a whole category of sophisticated mechanical aids, perhaps even early clocks or automated displays, that have been lost to time, their bronze melted down, their wood decayed. Its discovery tells us that the seeds of a mechanical revolution were planted in the ancient Mediterranean world. That revolution was snuffed out by the slow collapse of the classical world, its knowledge scattered and forgotten. The mechanism is a stark reminder that technological progress is not a straight, inevitable line upward. It is a fragile flame, one that can be lit, burn brightly, and then be extinguished for centuries, waiting in the dark silence of a shipwreck for a future that can finally understand it. But the precision of ancient mechanics stands in stark contrast to our next mystery, a list of impossible riches etched not on fragile parchment but on durable metal. Among the famous Dead Sea Scrolls discovered in caves near Qumran, one artifact is utterly unique. While the others are religious texts on leather or papyrus, the copper scroll is just that, two oxidized sheets of copper engraved with a stark, practical message. It is not a psalm or a prophecy. It is an inventory, a detailed list of 64 locations where staggering amounts of treasure are supposedly buried. The quantities are mind-boggling, listing thousands of talents of gold and silver, along with precious vessels and incense. Translated, it speaks of hidden caches in caves, tombs, and under specific landmarks across the ancient landscape of Judea. The immediate question is whether this is a record of real wealth or an allegorical fiction. The theory that it is a genuine treasure map hinges on its material and its timing. Why go to the considerable trouble of engraving on expensive, durable copper if the information was merely symbolic? The script and language suggest it dates from the 1st century, a period of tremendous upheaval during the first Jewish revolt against Rome. As the Roman legions advanced, the logical act for temple authorities in Jerusalem would have been to hide their sacred wealth to prevent its capture. The copper scroll, according to this interpretation, is that emergency ledger created to ensure the treasures could be recovered after the conflict. The locations described are precise, referencing pools, dams, and specific burial depths, reading like a set of instructions for a trusted few. You can see the scroll itself, its green patina etched with columns of text, and modern maps that attempt to plot its cryptic directions around the Dead Sea region and beyond. This has understandably sparked a century of treasure hunts. Archaeologists and adventurers have scoured wadis and excavated caves following the scroll's clues. Some searches have turned up small, tantalizing hints, like empty niches that could have once held valuables, but no legendary hoard has ever been recovered. This consistent failure leads to the other compelling possibility. Perhaps the treasures were found long ago, not by modern explorers, but by ancient looters in the chaotic years after the temple's destruction. Alternatively, the scroll might list a symbolic or ritual treasury, representing tithes or offerings owed to the community, rather than physical bars of gold. Yet the sheer specificity of the list argues against pure symbolism. It names exact amounts and landmarks, not spiritual concepts. The enduring power of the copper scroll lies in its tantalizing duality. It is either a heartbreaking historical document, a map to a fortune that was plundered 2,000 years ago, leaving only a cryptic receipt behind, or it is a profound philosophical puzzle about the nature of sacred wealth. The treasure, if it ever existed, may now lie under a modern highway, a parking lot, or simply in the dust of a long-collapsed cave. The scroll forces us to confront a difficult truth about the past. Some mysteries offer not a solution, but a permanent question. It holds out the slim, eternal hope that somewhere in the dry hills, a fortune in history still waits, silently guarded by a list written in metal. The silent arithmetic of stars might be written across an entire desert. Far from the Mediterranean, on the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nazca culture etched one of history's most breathtaking puzzles into the earth. From the ground, the landscape appears as a vast, empty expanse of reddish pebbles, but ascend to the height of a nearby hill or a modern drone, and an incredible vision emerges. Stretching for miles are enormous geometric lines, perfect triangles and trapezoids, and colossal figures of animals. A hummingbird with a long, thin beak, a spider, a monkey with a spiraling tail. For decades, popular imagination leaped to the idea of alien runways or landing strips, but a far more compelling and human theory connects these lines to the sky above. The leading scholarly hypothesis suggests the Nazca lines functioned as a giant astronomical calendar, a sacred map aligned with the heavens. This theory focuses on the precise orientation of many of the long, straight lines. Researchers like archaeoastronomer Maria Reich, who dedicated her life to studying the geoglyphs, meticulously mapped their directions. She and others found that a significant number of these lines point directly to the position on the horizon where the sun rises or sets during the summer and winter solstices. Others seem to align with the rising points of important stars or constellations during key agricultural periods. The giant spider figure, for instance, has been proposed to be a representation of the Orion constellation, a grouping of stars significant to many ancient cultures for marking time and seasons. The monkey with its coiled tail might mirror a specific star cluster. These alignments would have turned the desert into a vast observatory where walking the lines or conducting ceremonies at specific points would connect the people directly to the cosmic cycles governing their world, telling them when to plant, when to harvest, and when to honor the gods. This celestial interpretation, however, is not the only one. Other compelling theories view the lines as ritual pathways. In this view, the act of walking the lines themselves was the purpose, a form of pilgrimage or meditative journey undertaken during religious ceremonies. The figures might have served as spiritual destinations or totems for different clans. Another practical theory links the lines to water, the most precious resource in the desert. Some of the trapezoids and lines point toward underground water sources or converge on small mountains where rare rainfall would collect. They could have been part of a large-scale ritual system designed to invoke or give thanks for water, with the pathways guiding processions to these vital points. Drone footage reveals this stunning scale, showing how the lines cut across the landscape, often converging and intersecting in ways that make sense only from above. Overlaid with star charts, the potential correlations become visually striking, lines stretching toward a point on the horizon where a bright star would have risen 2,000 years ago. The true purpose was likely a combination of all these elements: astronomy, ritual, and water veneration, intertwined in a worldview where the earthly and celestial were inseparable. The Nazca did not need alien architects. They had something more powerful: a profound understanding of their environment and a desperate, beautiful need to communicate with the forces that sustain them. They did not build upward toward the sky. They carved their questions and their reverence directly into the earth, creating a message so vast it could only be read by the gods, or by the future soaring above in machines they could never have imagined. This leads us to another ancient wonder, one that also seems to defy the technological capabilities of its time, but whose purpose might be found not in the stars but in the very sound of creation. The earthbound lines of Nazca sought to map the heavens, but our next legend is written in the mist and mountains of a land clinging to its identity. The name King Arthur evokes a world of shining knights, a round table, and a magical sword pulled from a stone. Yet beneath the layers of medieval romance, there might beat the heart of a real, desperate war leader fighting in the gloomy twilight of Roman Britain. The theory suggests the legendary king was not a monarch in a grand castle, but a post-Roman cavalry commander, a man who bore the Latin name Artorius, leading a last stand of British civilization against invading Saxon tribes in the chaotic 5th or 6th century. This was not the age of chivalry, but the Dark Ages, a period of collapsing order, fading literacy, and brutal struggle for survival. In this shattered world, where Roman roads were crumbling and cities were being abandoned, a skilled military leader with a band of loyal horsemen would have been a beacon of hope. One historical candidate emerges from the earlier Roman period itself, a man named Lucius Artorius Castus. He was a real Roman officer who served in Britain in the late 2nd century, leading cavalry units composed of Sarmatian horsemen from the steppes. These Sarmatians had a rich warrior culture that included dragon standards and a myth about a sword lodged in the ground, eerie precursors to Arthurian symbols. While this Artorius lived centuries too early, his name and deeds could have lingered in local memory, later attached to a later hero. The more likely figure is a shadowy warlord from the immediate post-Roman era, a man whose true name is lost but whose title or nickname, perhaps derived from the Roman Artorius, survived in the songs of bards. Early Welsh poetry, like the epic poem The Gododdin from around the year 600, mentions a warrior of great valor but not as a king. He is a dux bellorum, a leader of battles who won 12 great victories against the Saxons, culminating in the famed Battle of Badon Hill. This is the core of the historical Arthur, a brilliant tactician who unified the fractious British kingdoms just long enough to stem the tide of invasion. The process of myth-making then takes over. Over centuries, this capable cavalry commander is gradually transformed. In the unstable oral tradition of a people longing for a golden age, his small band of armored horsemen becomes the Knights of the Round Table, a symbol of equality and fellowship. His likely base of operations, a hill fort or a Roman fortification, evolves into the magnificent castle of Camelot. The sword, perhaps a finely made Roman-style spatha or a family heirloom, becomes the supernatural Excalibur. Even his final rest in the Isle of Avalon speaks to a Celtic belief in the otherworld, a place where the great hero sleeps, ready to return in his people's darkest hour. Visualizing this is key. Picture not stone castles but the damp, wooded landscape of post-Roman Britain. Imagine not plate armor but a mix of Roman chainmail and native designs. See not a grand throne room but a smoky chieftain's hall where a war leader plans his next move against a relentless enemy. The power of this theory lies in its human scale. It suggests that the most enduring myth of British identity was born from a very real moment of crisis, from the courage of a man who held the line against the dark. Arthur, whether his name was Artorius or something else, represents the last echo of Roman order meeting the resilient spirit of the Celtic West. His legend grew because people needed it to grow, transforming a skilled commander of cavalry into the once and future king, a promise that the light of civilization, once almost extinguished, could never truly die. From the mists of British legend, we move to an object of intense faith and science, a single piece of linen that has divided opinion for centuries. The Shroud of Turin is a 14-foot-long cloth bearing the faint, haunting image of a crucified man, believed by millions to be the burial shroud of Jesus Christ. In 1988, radiocarbon dating of a small sample placed its origin firmly between 1260 and 1390, squarely in the medieval period. For many, this settled the debate, labeling it a clever forgery from the Middle Ages. Yet the shroud refuses to be so easily dismissed because its physical properties present a puzzle that medieval science should not have been able to solve. The image on the cloth is not a painting in any conventional sense. It contains no pigment, no brush strokes, and the color resides only on the very topmost fibers. Most astonishingly, the faint, sepia-toned image we see is actually a perfect photographic negative. When first photographed in 1898, the negative plate revealed a startlingly clear, positive image of a man with precise anatomical details, from the wounds of crucifixion to the flows of blood matching gravity. This level of accuracy, particularly in depicting blood-serum separation, predates modern forensic knowledge by centuries, so if it is a medieval creation, how was it done? One radical theory proposes it was created using an early form of photography, the camera obscura. This simple device, a dark room or box with a small hole that projects an inverted image of the outside world onto a surface, was understood in principle long before the medieval period. The controversial hypothesis suggests a genius like Leonardo da Vinci, who lived just after the earliest carbon date range and was fascinated with optics and anatomy, could have used a camera obscura to project the image of a model or even a cadaver onto linen treated with a light-sensitive substance. Silver salts, which are light-sensitive, were known to alchemists. If the linen was coated with a silver compound and placed in the focal plane of a large camera obscura, a long exposure to sunlight could have burned the image onto the cloth, creating a primitive photograph. This could explain the negative image, the lack of brush strokes, and the stunning three-dimensional information encoded in the image's intensity. Modern analysis has mapped the shroud's image density and found it correlates precisely with the distance between the cloth and a three-dimensional body, a property nearly impossible for a medieval artist to fabricate without advanced mathematical understanding. The scientific debate rages on. Critics of the photograph theory point out no medieval recipe for such a photosensitive material has been found, and the process would have been immensely complex. Proponents counter that the carbon dating sample might have been contaminated by a fire the shroud survived in the 1500s, or that it came from a later repair patch. The image formation mechanism remains unexplained by any conventional art historical technique. To visualize this, one must see the shroud's negative image side by side with its stunning positive photographic revelation, the calm, detailed face that emerges from the faint stains. Then consider a diagram of a large, room-sized camera obscura, a beam of light entering an aperture and casting an inverted image of a man onto a treated cloth stretched on the wall. It is a hauntingly plausible scene, whether the work of a divine event or a forgotten, brilliant experiment in image-making. The Shroud of Turin challenges our timeline of human ingenuity. It suggests that the desire to capture a perfect likeness, to freeze a moment in light, may have stirred in a mind centuries before we thought it possible. This artifact does not ask us to choose only between miracle or fraud. It presents a third, tantalizing possibility, a glimpse of a lost prototype in the long history of seeing. The shroud's mystery lies in a single, fragile image, but our next theory paints its danger across a vast and infamous expanse of ocean. For decades, the Bermuda Triangle has been a warehouse for supernatural speculation, a place where ships and planes vanish without a trace, swallowed by aliens, time warps, or ancient curses. Yet the truth may be far more unsettling because it is a natural force hidden in the deep, waiting to erupt. The leading scientific explanation points to a specific and volatile substance, methane hydrate. Imagine a lattice of ice frozen not just by cold, but by immense pressure on the seafloor, trapping within it vast quantities of methane gas. These deposits exist in staggering volumes along continental shelves worldwide, and the seafloor under the Bermuda Triangle is particularly rich in them. The theory hinges on a simple, terrifying principle of physics. If a seismic shift or a landslide destabilizes these hydrate deposits, they can release a colossal bubble of methane gas that rockets toward the surface. As this immense plume rises, it does something catastrophic to the water above it. The water becomes aerated, filled with billions of bubbles, and in that state, its density plummets. A ship floating in such a column of frothing, gas-filled water would no longer have the buoyancy to stay afloat. It would not sink slowly, taking on water. It would lose all lift instantly, plunging straight down to the abyss before a distress call could even be completed. The effect is not limited to the sea. When that methane plume finally breaches the surface, it continues into the atmosphere. A large, concentrated cloud of methane gas mixed with air creates a zone of dangerously reduced oxygen density. To an aircraft engine, this thin, fuel-rich air could cause immediate flameout and loss of power. For the wings, the sudden loss of air density would mean a catastrophic drop in lift, causing the plane to fall from the sky as if it had flown into a pocket of nothing. Computer-generated imagery makes this horrifyingly clear, showing a ship peacefully sailing one moment, and the next, the ocean beneath it turning into a boiling, white froth as a giant bubble erupts. The vessel tips violently, then is pulled down in a matter of seconds, leaving only a dissipating patch of foam. The evidence for this possibility is tangible. Sonar surveys have indeed identified large methane hydrate fields and even giant pockmarks on the seafloor in the region, the scars of past blowouts. The question is one of scale and frequency. Could such an event be large enough to engulf a sizable ship? Geological models suggest yes, absolutely. Could it happen without warning? Undersea landslides are sudden and silent. Does it explain every single disappearance attributed to the triangle? Almost certainly not, as human error, violent weather common to the area, and simple coincidence account for most. But the methane hydrate theory provides a plausible physical mechanism for the most dramatic and inexplicable tales. The vessels found adrift with crews vanished, or the planes that disappeared mid-sentence from radio contact. It replaces the specter of the supernatural with a force equally formidable, the volatile geology of our own planet, reminding us that the seafloor is not a silent grave but an active, breathing entity. This natural explanation does not make the Bermuda Triangle less mysterious. It makes it more real, a place where the Earth itself can exhale a deadly breath. The sea's hidden geology can erase a vessel in moments, but some artifacts from the past seem to defy erasure entirely, carved from a material meant to last forever. Among the most captivating are the crystal skulls, objects of legend that have long been dismissed as clever 19th century fakes. While it is true that many skulls in museum collections have been definitively exposed as modern creations, often carved with industrial jewelers' wheels, a stubborn theory persists that a handful of them might be genuine relics of a lost world. The most famous of these is the Mitchell-Hedges skull, a life-sized carving from a single block of clear quartz crystal, so flawless it seems to glow from within. The standard story is that it was discovered in a Mayan ruin in Belize in the 1920s, but its provenance is famously murky, wrapped in family legend. Skeptics point to this lack of clear archaeological context as proof of a hoax. Yet, the physical evidence of the skull itself presents puzzles that are not so easily brushed aside. Close examination reveals features that challenge the modern tool narrative. Unlike the smooth, polished surfaces of known fakes, the Mitchell-Hedges skull shows microscopic wear patterns and striations that some experts argue are consistent with prolonged hand carving and polishing using abrasive sands and stones, a technique that would have taken generations of ancient artisans, not months in a 19th century workshop. More compelling is the jaw. It is a separate piece, perfectly carved from the same block of crystal and ingeniously suspended on smooth pivots so that it moves freely when touched. This feat of engineering, achieving such mobility without modern precision tools, seems an unnecessarily complex flourish for a forger whose goal was simply to create a static curio. When you see extreme close-ups of the skull, the internal fractures and inclusions within the quartz become visible, and the alleged tool marks can be compared side by side with those from verified ancient carvings and modern pieces. The differences in pattern and depth are subtle but telling. To understand why anyone would undertake such a monumental task, we must look to the spiritual world of ancient Mesoamerica. For cultures like the Maya and the Aztec, crystal was not just a beautiful stone, it was a sacred substance believed to be a physical form of breath, water, and light frozen into permanence. Quartz, with its ability to refract and hold light, was seen as a conduit to the spirit world, a vessel for consciousness. A skull carved from this material would not be a symbol of death, but of eternal life and wisdom, a frozen thought made tangible. Creating such an object would be an act of supreme devotion, a way to capture the essence of a deity or an ancestor in a form that could communicate across millennia. The theory does not claim all crystal skulls are real, far from it. The market was flooded with fakes during the 19th century's obsession with the exotic. But it asks us to consider that within that fog of forgery, one or two extraordinary objects might be authentic. They would stand not as trophies, but as profound philosophical statements, the culmination of a culture's technical skill and spiritual yearning. If true, the crystal skull is more than an artifact. It is a mind made of stone, waiting silently through the centuries for a time that could once again appreciate the patience and vision required to bring it into being. This notion of a single, patient creation leads us to another wonder, one built not by a lone artisan, but by an entire civilization moving stones that seemed to defy the very logic of their time. The silent patience of a crystal skull is one thing, but the sudden, frantic abandonment of a perfectly sound ship is another kind of mystery entirely. In December 1872, the merchant brigantine Mary Celeste was spotted adrift in the Atlantic by another vessel. Her sails were partially set, but she was yawing strangely, a ghost ship. When the boarding party climbed aboard, they found a scene of profound and eerie normalcy interrupted. A meal was laid out uneaten. The crew's personal belongings and even their pipes were still in their quarters. The ship's cargo, over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, was intact, but every single soul on board, the captain, his wife, their young daughter, and the entire crew, were gone without a trace. The lifeboat was missing. It was as if they had simply evaporated into the salt air. For over a century, speculation has run wild, from pirate attacks and sea monsters to mutiny. Yet one of the most compelling theories requires no external villain, only a cascade of understandable fears triggered by the ocean itself. The explanation begins with the cargo. Industrial alcohol in those barrels was highly volatile. As the ship sailed through a specific seismic zone known for undersea activity, it could have been jolted by a minor seaquake, a sharp, shuddering impact from below. Alternatively, a sudden waterspout striking the deck would have sounded like the ship being torn apart. The resulting noise and vibration would have been terrifying, audible groans and shudders running through the wooden hull. To a crew already nervous about their flammable cargo, this sound had one logical interpretation: the barrels were shifting and about to rupture. In the confined space of the hold, alcohol fumes could have already been building, a sharp, pungent odor the crew might have mistaken for the precursor to a catastrophic explosion. Panic is a logic of its own. In that moment, believing their ship was seconds from becoming a fireball, the captain likely gave the only order that made sense: abandon ship. They would have launched the lifeboat in haste, tethering it to the Celeste with a strong line, a standard procedure to stay close. They rode a safe distance away, waiting for the blast. But the explosion never came. The seaquake tremor passed, the waterspout dissipated, and the Mary Celeste, slightly damaged but fundamentally seaworthy, simply drifted on. Then disaster struck a second time. The line connecting the lifeboat to the ship, perhaps frayed by the chaotic launch or chafing against the hull, snapped. The crew watched in horror as their only real shelter sailed away, leaving them in a small boat in the open Atlantic. A sudden squall could have then swamped the lifeboat, or they slowly succumbed to exposure and thirst, vanishing beneath the waves. This theory elegantly explains the haunting clues. The orderly state of the ship, with no sign of struggle, points to a deliberate, urgent evacuation, not an attack. The missing lifeboat and navigational instruments suggest they planned a temporary escape, intending to return. Even the single, ceremonial sword found under the captain's bed, often cited as evidence of foul play, fits. In their frantic rush, they simply left it behind. To visualize this is to feel that chilling chain of events. See the ship sailing calmly, then a deep, subterranean shudder making the masts tremble. Hear the crew's shouts, the scramble to lower the boat into choppy water. Watch from the lifeboat as the brigantine drifts further away, the tether line straining and then parting with a snap. The empty ship becomes a prison wall receding on the horizon. The Mary Celeste is not a tale of the supernatural, but a tragedy of perception. It shows how the human mind, faced with ambiguous danger, can choose a terrible certainty over an unknown risk. They fled a phantom explosion only to be delivered to the very real, patient mercy of the sea. This story of a crew lost to the elements connects to another maritime enigma, where the fate of an entire, seasoned expedition was sealed not by panic, but by a single, perfect and deadly layer of nature's design. Panic on the high seas is a swift and final judge, but on land, a disappearance can be slower, leaving behind clues that whisper rather than scream. In the late 16th century, a group of over 100 English men, women, and children established a settlement on Roanoke Island, off the coast of what is now North Carolina. Their governor, John White, sailed back to England for desperately needed supplies, but war with Spain delayed his return for 3 long years. When he finally made it back in 1590, he found the colony utterly deserted. The houses had been carefully dismantled, not destroyed, and the only clue was a single word carved into a fort post, Croatoan, and the letters CRO carved into a tree. There were no crosses, the pre-arranged sign for distress. The settlers had simply vanished, creating America's oldest enduring mystery. The most compelling and humane theory is not one of massacre or catastrophe, but of assimilation. The word Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, now Hatteras Island, and the people who lived there, the Croatan, were part of the larger Algonquian-speaking Secotan Confederation. These were not strangers to the colonists. They had established generally friendly relations, sharing food and knowledge. When Governor White left, the colony was already struggling, low on supplies and facing a severe drought. The theory suggests that as conditions worsened, the pragmatic choice for survival was to abandon the isolated Roanoke site and seek refuge with their indigenous neighbors. The careful dismantling of buildings suggests a planned departure, not a frantic flight. The missing lifeboats from the settlement's shore indicate they likely used them to sail the roughly 50 miles south to Croatoan Island. Later reports from other English explorers in the 17th century lend weight to this idea. Captain John Smith of Jamestown heard stories from Powhatan chiefs about people who dressed like Englishmen living inland. In the mid-1700s, a surveyor named John Lawson wrote of meeting Hatteras Indians on Croatoan Island who claimed descent from the white settlers, saying that several of their ancestors were white people who could talk in a book, meaning read. He noted that many of them had gray eyes, uncommon among neighboring tribes. This points to a profound cultural and biological blending. Imagine the scene not as an ending but a beginning. A group of weary, hungry English families arriving at a Croatan village. They would have brought with them items of metal, cloth, and perhaps books, trading their skills in carpentry or blacksmithing for integration into the community. Over a generation, languages would have mixed, clothing styles merged, and spiritual beliefs intertwined. A European-style fence might enclose a traditional longhouse. A metal knife would be used to carve a canoe. The colonists did not vanish, they dissolved, like a river joining the sea, becoming part of a new, hybrid society that the rigid categories of the 17th century English mind could not comprehend. Modern science has sought to confirm this through DNA. Projects have attempted to trace genetic markers from present-day descendants of the coastal Algonquian tribes back to European lineages from the late 1500s. The results are complex, as centuries of subsequent European contact have layered genetics, but some intriguing familial links have been suggested, though not yet conclusively proven. The true evidence may be more subtle than a genetic marker. It is in the resilience of the human spirit to choose community over isolation, adaptation over extinction. The story of the lost colony transforms from a tragedy into a quiet revolution. It suggests that America's first permanent English settlement did not fail. It simply chose a different future than the one history had prescribed for it, leaving behind a single, stubborn word carved in wood, not as a cry for help, but as a signpost pointing toward home. A colony choosing to vanish into a new community is an act of hope, but within the cold stone walls of the Tower of London, another disappearance carries the chill of betrayal. The fate of the princes in the tower is the ultimate dynastic crime, a story so entrenched it defines a king as a monster. The traditional tale is stark. In 1483, the 12-year-old King Edward V and his 9-year-old brother Richard, Duke of York, were declared illegitimate and placed in the tower by their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. He then seized the crown as Richard III. Within months, the boys were seen less and less, then never again. It is assumed they were murdered on their uncle's orders, their bodies hidden, allowing his reign to proceed without rival claimants. This narrative, immortalized by Shakespeare, paints Richard as the archetypal usurper. Yet, a compelling counter-theory asks a dangerous question: what if they were not killed at all but smuggled out alive? The foundation of this idea lies in a surprising absence, a complete lack of concrete, contemporary evidence for their murder. No bodies were discovered during Richard's reign. No official accusation was made by his political enemies while he was alive, and no servant or guard ever came forward with a confession or an eyewitness account. In an age of intense factional intrigue, such a powerful weapon against the king would have been used immediately if it were known. The silence is deafening. This opens the door to a more complex political reality. Richard's initial motive was not necessarily to kill the boys, but to neutralize their claim. Declaring them illegitimate through a parliamentary act was his legal strategy. Keeping them alive but securely hidden actually served a purpose. As long as they lived, they were valuable pawns, potential assets to be married off or used in future negotiations. Their deaths would only create martyrs and remove his leverage. The theory suggests that as pressure mounted, particularly with the growing threat from Henry Tudor in exile, the decision was made to spirit them away, perhaps to the European continent, into a life of obscurity under new identities. This would explain the two most intriguing figures to emerge after Richard's death at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485. First came Lambert Simnel, a boy trained to impersonate the younger prince, Richard. He was backed by powerful Yorkist loyalists and crowned in Ireland before his rebellion was crushed. Then, more convincingly, came Perkin Warbeck. For years, this young man claimed to be Richard, the Duke of York, and he was recognized as such by several European courts, including those of France and Scotland. He bore a striking resemblance to the Plantagenets, knew intimate details of court life, and maintained his story steadfastly, even under torture. While both were ultimately labeled impostors by the victorious Henry VII, their persistent claims raise a haunting possibility. Could one of them, particularly Warbeck, have been genuine, a prince secretly raised abroad and now returning to reclaim his throne? The portraits we have of the young princes show them dressed in finery, their faces pale and solemn. Contrast that with the known images of Perkin Warbeck, and the resemblance in the line of the nose and the set of the eyes is uncanny. It is entirely plausible that a surviving prince, educated by loyalists in Burgundy, could have been presented as the real article. Henry VII had the ultimate motive to declare any survivor a fake. His own claim to the throne was tenuous and dependent on the princes being dead. He had Warbeck executed after a failed invasion. The enduring mystery is not just about their fate, but about the weight of storytelling. The victorious Tudors, especially Henry VII and his son Henry VIII, had every reason to solidify the narrative of Richard III as a child killer, thereby legitimizing their own rule. Thomas More's later account, written under the Tudors and a primary source for Shakespeare, is filled with dramatic, unverifiable details. History, as they say, is written by the victors, and in this case they wrote a masterpiece of villainy. So we are left with two haunting images: the dark, cramped room in the tower where we assume the worst, and the sunlit courtyard of a European palace where a young man might have lived, knowing a secret that could topple kingdoms. The truth may be that the princes did not vanish into a grave, but into the even deeper obscurity of a rewritten past. The prince's disappearance into rewritten history is one thing, but the fate of a sacred object of immense power is another matter entirely. The Ark of the Covenant, the gilded chest said to contain the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, vanished from the biblical record after the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem's first temple. While Hollywood sends it to a warehouse, a profound and ancient tradition in the highlands of Ethiopia claims it never left the faithful and rests today in a small chapel in the holy city of Axum. This is not fringe speculation, but a central pillar of Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity, woven into the nation's very identity. The story begins with the legendary union of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Ethiopian tradition holds that from this union came a son, Menelik I, who would become the first emperor of Ethiopia and found the Solomonic dynasty. As a young man, Menelik traveled to Jerusalem to meet his father. Upon his return to Ethiopia, the story says he was accompanied by a retinue of Israelite nobles. And they did not come empty-handed. According to the Kebra Nagast, Ethiopia's national epic compiled in the 14th century, the firstborn sons of these nobles, unbeknownst to Menelik, secretly switched the real Ark of the Covenant with a perfect replica, spiriting the true artifact out of Jerusalem and south to the safety of Ethiopia. The theory suggests this could have happened during a period of political instability, perhaps just before the Babylonian invasion, preserving the Ark from destruction or capture. The object of this devotion today is the Chapel of the Tablet, adjacent to the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum. It is a modest green domed building guarded 24 hours a day by a single chosen monk. This guardian, appointed for life, is the only person on earth permitted to see the Ark. He never leaves the chapel grounds, dedicating his entire existence to its protection, and when he dies, another is chosen to take his place. This unbroken line of devotion, spanning generations, lends the claim a weight that transcends mere archaeology. It is a living faith. Scholars who consider the theory plausible point not to supernatural claims, but to deep historical and cultural connections. The ancient kingdom of Axum, a major trading power contemporary with the Roman Empire, had well-documented commercial and cultural links with the wider Middle East, including Jewish communities. A significant Jewish presence, the Beta Israel community, has existed in Ethiopia for millennia. The architectural style of ancient Aksumite monuments with their towering carved stelae echoes a grandeur fit for a sacred national treasure. When you see the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion and the guarded chapel set against the backdrop of Axum's ancient obelisks, the visual narrative is powerful. This is a landscape that has venerated this object for centuries. The theory's strength lies in its continuity. It provides a complete story from a biblical era transfer to a modern-day vigil, answering the question of why the Ark disappeared from Jerusalem's history because it was taken to a new home. While no outside scholar has ever verified the Ark's presence, and the unwavering secrecy makes verification impossible, the theory endures because it is not merely about an artifact. It is about a nation's spiritual patrimony, a tangible link to a shared biblical heritage that has survived empires, wars, and time itself. The guardian in his chapel is not just protecting a box, he is safeguarding a story that defines a people, a story that asks us to consider that the most sought-after relics might not be lost, but are simply being kept safe, far from the reach of those who would see them as only historical curiosities. While the Ark of the Covenant represents a spiritual treasure hidden in plain sight, the Great Pyramid of Giza is a physical one, its construction method lost beneath 4,500 years of speculation. The traditional image of a massive, straight external ramp stretching into the desert is visually compelling, but it collapses under practical scrutiny. Such a ramp, to reach the pyramid's apex at 480 feet, would have required more material than the pyramid itself, an engineering project dwarfing the monument it was meant to build. The logistical nightmare of hauling 2.5-ton blocks up a steep, narrow incline for decades seems almost impossible. Architect Jean-Pierre Houdin proposed a radical solution that turns the problem inside out. His internal spiral ramp theory suggests the Egyptians built the pyramid from the inside, using a corkscrew tunnel that ascended within the structure's own growing walls. This elegant idea solves the most vexing puzzles of the pyramid's birth. The construction would have begun with a traditional straight ramp for the first third of the pyramid's height, used to haul the massive stones for the grand galleries and burial chambers. Once that core was complete, the builders then closed off the external ramp and began the ingenious second phase. They constructed a narrow, ascending corridor within the pyramid's thick outer casing, a ramp that spiraled 4 times around the interior, hugging the outer wall. Blocks were hauled on sledges through this dark, enclosed passageway. At each corner, a simple open notch allowed the teams to pivot the heavy sledges 90 degrees, a clever use of space and physics. The final, most brilliant piece of the puzzle involved the placement of the pyramid's iconic white limestone casing stones, the smooth, polished blocks that gave the structure its flawless skin. Howden proposed that as the builders neared the top, they left open sections in the internal ramp, creating temporary external notches on each face. These served as short, direct channels to haul the delicate casing stones into position from the outside, which were then set from the top down, sealing the notches and the internal ramp forever. This theory moved from compelling model to tantalizing possibility with modern technology. Microgravimetry surveys, which measure subtle differences in density within a structure, have revealed intriguing anomalies within the Great Pyramid. The scans suggest the presence of a low-density spiral pattern inside the monument, a ghostly signature matching the precise path of Howden's proposed internal ramp. These are not empty chambers, but likely filled-in passages, their voids packed with rubble and sand over the millennia. To visualize this is to see the pyramid not as a solid tomb, but as a dynamic construction site frozen in time. 3D cutaway animations bring Howden's theory to life, peeling back the stone layers to reveal the dark, sloping corridor snaking upward inside the shell. We see teams of workers illuminated by flickering torchlight, maneuvering a massive block around a corner notch. Then, the animation shifts to show the external notches in use, the final casing stones being slid into place like pieces of a cosmic puzzle before the entire system is sealed shut, leaving no trace of the intricate machine that built it. This theory does more than explain how the blocks moved. It restores a profound intelligence to the process. It transforms the pyramid from a brute force monument into a feat of precise, evolving engineering, a temporary labyrinth of sweat and purpose that disappeared into its own creation. The builders did not just leave us a mountain of stone, they left us the ultimate locked room mystery with the blueprints hidden inside the walls. The builders of the Great Pyramid sealed their secrets within stone, but nature can unleash its own violent mysteries without any warning at all. On the morning of June 30th, 1908, a remote region of Siberia near the Tunguska River became the epicenter of an event that shook the world. A massive fireball streaked across the sky, followed by a series of deafening explosions. The blast wave, equivalent to a 10 to 15 megaton bomb, flattened over 800 square miles of ancient forest, snapping tens of millions of trees like matchsticks and scorching the earth. The seismic shock was recorded across Europe and Asia, and the night skies glowed eerily for weeks as far away as London. The official scientific consensus points to the airburst of a stony asteroid or a small comet, perhaps 100 meters wide, disintegrating several miles above the ground. Yet the complete absence of any sizable impact crater has fueled wilder, more speculative ideas for over a century. One of the most exotic theories suggests the Tunguska event was caused by a microscopic black hole. The idea, proposed by physicists in the 1970s, posits a primordial black hole, a hypothetical relic from the Big Bang no larger than an atom but with the mass of a mountain passing directly through the Earth. As it entered the atmosphere, the immense gravitational pull would compress the air ahead of it, heating it to incandescence and creating the observed fireball. Upon exiting the planet on the other side, a similar effect would occur, though no corresponding event was ever reliably documented in the North Atlantic. While mathematically intriguing, this theory faces a colossal hurdle: the lack of any detectable seismic signature of the black hole's passage through the planet's interior, which would have left a distinct and measurable trail of disturbances. An even more persistent fringe theory leans into pure science fiction, the idea that the explosion was the catastrophic failure of an alien spacecraft, perhaps a nuclear-powered vehicle suffering a core meltdown or a warp drive malfunction. Proponents point to alleged anomalies in the blast zone, such as reports of increased mutation rates in plants and claims of unusual metallic fragments, though none of these have been verified by mainstream science. The psychological power of this idea is undeniable. It transforms a random cosmic accident into a narrative, a story of a mission from the stars ending in a lonely, fiery catastrophe in the Siberian wilderness. Historical photographs from the early expeditions are haunting. They show a vast landscape of trees laid out radially from the epicenter, all pointing away from the center of the blast, a giant fingerprint of unimaginable force. Artist concepts of the black hole theory visualize a tiny, invisible point of infinite density trailing a cone of superheated plasma as it lances through the atmosphere, while depictions of the spacecraft theory show a sleek, otherworldly vessel breaking apart in a sphere of blinding white light. These fringe theories persist not because of strong evidence, but because they fill a gap in our understanding with something even more compelling than a simple rock from space, a touch of the cosmic or the technological unknown. The Tunguska event remains a humbling reminder of our planet's vulnerability to forces beyond our control, and a blank canvas onto which we project our deepest fears and most fantastic hopes about the universe. It asks us whether we are more comforted by a known danger from the asteroid belt, or by the thrilling, terrifying possibility that we are not alone, and that sometimes visitors from the cosmos might arrive not in peace but in a single, earth-shattering flash. A cosmic flash is a sudden, singular catastrophe, but the end of an entire age can be a slow, grinding unraveling. Around 1200 BC, the brilliant civilizations encircling the Mediterranean entered a death spiral. The mighty Hittite Empire in Anatolia vanished. The prosperous Mycenaean palaces of Greece burned and were abandoned. Egypt's new kingdom, though it survived, was battered to its core, losing its foreign territories and descending into poverty. This was the Bronze Age collapse, a dark age that lasted for centuries, and its cause has long been a prime historical mystery. The compelling modern theory suggests there was no single villain, but rather a perfect storm of disasters that overwhelmed the interconnected system. Imagine a network of powerful kingdoms linked by trade in tin and copper for bronze, luxury goods, and diplomatic letters on clay tablets. This was a globalized world for its time, and that was its weakness. The first stressor was likely climate change. Studies of ancient tree rings from that period show a pronounced multi-decade drought stretching from Greece to Mesopotamia. This was not just a bad few years, it was a prolonged mega-drought that would have devastated harvests season after season, leading to famine, social unrest, and a desperate scarcity of resources. At the same time, the archaeological record from many sites shows evidence of catastrophic earthquakes. The region sits on volatile fault lines, and a series of major tremors could have shattered cities already weakened by hunger, destroying fortifications, palaces, and vital infrastructure like irrigation systems. This combination of environmental pressures created fertile ground for the third factor, internal rebellion. A starving, desperate populace is less likely to obey distant kings. Tablets from the period speak of food shortages and social instability. It is easy to envision local governors failing to send taxes to the capital, mercenaries going unpaid and turning to banditry, and whole regions fragmenting into chaos. Into this volatile mix sailed the infamous Sea Peoples. Egyptian temple reliefs at Medinet Habu depict them not as a unified army, but as a confederation of different groups arriving in ships and ox-drawn carts with their families, suggesting a migration of displaced peoples. They were likely both a cause and a symptom of the collapse, refugees and raiders from the disrupted regions of the Aegean and Anatolia, pushed south by the same droughts and quakes, and now attacking the weakened remnants of empire in a desperate search for new land. Maps of the era are stark, showing the swift contraction of Hittite and Mycenaean territory, replaced by a void labeled simply the Dark Age. Artifacts tell the same story of sudden rupture. Tablets from the Hittite capital of Hattusa show a government desperately trying to secure grain shipments right up until the city was burned and abandoned. In Greece, the Linear B script used for palace administration disappears entirely, literacy itself vanishing for centuries. The collapse was systemic failure. The drought crippled agriculture, the earthquakes shattered cities, internal rebellions dissolved political order, and the movements of the Sea Peoples severed the vital maritime trade routes that held the Bronze Age world together. Without tin from afar, you could not make bronze, the material for weapons and tools. Without a stable central authority, you could not organize large-scale defense or famine relief. Each disaster amplified the others, creating a feedback loop of collapse that no kingdom, no matter how powerful, could withstand. It is a sobering lesson in the fragility of civilization, a reminder that our complex societies are built upon a delicate balance of climate, stability, and connection. When all those pillars are shaken at once, even the mightiest bronze gates can splinter and fall. While empires crumbled on land, a different kind of journey was being undertaken far out on the open ocean, not for conquest but for God. Centuries before the Vikings set sail, an Irish monk named Saint Brendan the Navigator supposedly embarked on an epic voyage. His story, recorded in the medieval text Navigatio Sancti Brendani, reads like a fantastical adventure filled with encounters with giant crystal pillars, sea monsters, and an island that turned out to be a sleeping whale. For a long time, it was dismissed as pure pious fiction, a spiritual allegory. Yet, a compelling theory suggests this mystical navigatio might contain a hidden kernel of geographical truth, a distorted memory of Irish monks reaching the shores of North America. The central question is audacious. Could 6th century monks in fragile boats have crossed the North Atlantic? The technology, surprisingly, argues yes. The Irish curragh was a remarkable vessel, a wooden frame covered in stitched oiled ox hides. Light, flexible, and buoyant, it could ride over waves rather than plow through them. These boats were seaworthy enough for the treacherous waters of the North Atlantic, as proven by modern adventurers like Tim Severin, who successfully sailed a replica curragh from Ireland to Newfoundland in the 1970s. His journey demonstrated that the described route was not just possible but followed a natural maritime highway. The theory hinges on this highway, the North Atlantic Gyre. A monk setting out from Ireland's west coast would be caught by the Gulf Stream, pushing north. From there, following the currents and island hopping, he could reach the Faroe Islands, then Iceland, then Greenland, and finally the coast of Newfoundland. Each leg of this journey is a few hundred miles, manageable with summer voyages and overwintering on discovered lands. This stepping stone path mirrors the descriptions in the Navigatio. The text speaks of finding a land of promise, a place of immense beauty and abundance. When you lay the fantastical descriptions aside and look at the basic geography, the correlations become startling. The island of sheep and the paradise of birds could easily describe the Faroe Islands and Iceland, teeming with animal life unfamiliar to an Irish monk. The crystal pillar they sailed past for days might be a poetic account of encountering icebergs off the coast of Greenland, glowing in the Arctic light. The final promised land of the saints, described with vast rivers and lush forests, aligns remarkably with the Avalon Peninsula of Newfoundland. Maps visualizing this potential route show a clear, logical progression up and across the Atlantic, a path that uses the very currents and islands the Vikings would later exploit. The timeline is what makes this theory revolutionary. If true, it places Irish monks on the edge of the New World around the year 500 or 600, a full 4 centuries before Leif Erikson and nearly a millennium before Columbus. They would not have come to settle or conquer, but to find solitude and a closer connection to the divine in the ultimate hermitage. They might have built simple stone huts, oratories like those found on Skellig Michael off the Irish coast, leaving little trace beyond perhaps some enigmatic stone structures later found by the Norse. The Navigatio is not a sailor's log, it is a spiritual text filtered through generations of oral storytelling. The sea monsters and magical islands are the narrative spices added to a real, terrifying, and awe-inspiring journey across the unknown ocean. It transforms from a mere allegory into a potential travelogue of the sublime, where the wonders of nature are so overwhelming they are recorded as miracles. This idea does not diminish the faith of the monks, it amplifies their incredible courage. It suggests that the drive for spiritual discovery could propel humans across oceans just as powerfully as the desire for gold or land. The quiet monks in their leather boats become the ultimate explorers, seeking not a new world, but a new way to be closer to heaven, and in doing so, they may have stumbled upon a continent whose existence would reshape the world. Their story whispers that sometimes the greatest discoveries are made by those who are not looking for an empire but for a promised land. A world shaped by spiritual voyages and quiet courage stands in stark contrast to an artifact that hints at a very different kind of power. In the basement of the National Museum of Iraq sits a simple clay jar about the size of a man's fist. Found near Baghdad and dated to the Parthian period, roughly 2,000 years ago, it holds a secret that seems to leap across centuries. Inside the jar, a copper cylinder is sealed with asphalt, and within that cylinder sits an iron rod. To the modern eye, the arrangement is unmistakable. It is a primitive battery. The theory is as shocking as the current it might have produced. If this jar were filled with an acidic electrolyte, something as common as vinegar or lemon juice, the chemical reaction between the copper and the iron would generate a small but measurable electric charge around 1 volt. That is enough to produce a tingle, a faint spark, or to enable a process called electroplating, where a thin layer of metal is transferred from one object to another through an electrical charge. The implications are staggering. Could an ancient civilization have understood and harnessed electricity for practical or ceremonial purposes? Proponents of the theory point to other unexplained artifacts from antiquity, like gold-plated objects that show no signs of the hammering normally used in ancient metallurgy. They suggest a series of these so-called Baghdad batteries, linked together, could have provided enough voltage to electroplate small items, such as jewelry or religious icons, with a fine layer of gold or silver. This would have been a form of magic, transforming a common metal into a precious one through an invisible force. Alternatively, the mild shock itself could have held profound religious significance. In temples dedicated to healing gods, a priest might have used the device to administer a mysterious tingling sensation to a believer, a tangible sign of divine power coursing through their body. The psychological effect would have been profound, a direct experience of the unseen. To see the theory in action is compelling. Modern replicas, built exactly to the ancient specifications and filled with grape juice, can indeed generate a measurable current. In demonstrations, several jars connected in series have been shown to power a small LED light, casting a faint glow, or to slowly deposit a shimmering layer of copper onto a silver coin over hours. The visual is haunting, a tiny light from the ancient world flickering to life in a modern lab. Yet, the vast majority of mainstream archaeologists remain deeply skeptical. Their counter-argument is pragmatic. The jars, they say, were far more likely used as secure storage for sacred scrolls. The copper cylinder would have held a rolled piece of parchment or papyrus, protected from the elements by the asphalt seal, with the iron rod acting as a simple stopper or a core around which the scroll was wound. They argue that no wires, connectors, or other components of an electrical system have ever been found with these jars. Furthermore, no contemporary texts or illustrations from the Parthian or later Sasanian periods make any reference to such a shocking technology. The debate, therefore, is a perfect standoff between possibility and probability. The object's form screams battery to our modern sensibilities, but the archaeological context whispers storage jar. This is the heart of its mystery. It is an artifact out of time, a shape that anticipates a future its creators may never have intended. It forces us to confront a difficult question about how we interpret the past. Do we see only what we expect to find, or do we allow for flashes of accidental genius, for technologies born from experimentation and then lost because their true potential was never fully grasped? The clay jar does not give up its secret. It simply sits, a silent vessel that could have held sacred texts or the very spark of a forgotten science, reminding us that the line between mundane utility and revolutionary discovery is sometimes as thin as a layer of copper. The silent potential of a clay jar hints at knowledge that could flicker and die, but the fate of an entire legion of soldiers leaves a more permanent mark on the landscape of history. After the disastrous Roman defeat at the Battle of Carrhae in 53 BC, history records that 10,000 legionaries were taken prisoner by the victorious Parthians. Then they vanish from Western accounts. Centuries later, a fascinating clue surfaces in ancient Chinese chronicles from the Han Dynasty. Around 36 BC, a Chinese general named Chen Tang, fighting in Central Asia, reported encountering and capturing a unique contingent of mercenaries in the service of a local chieftain. His description is startling. These soldiers fought in a fish-scale formation, locking their shields together in a testudo or tortoise shell, a tactic synonymous with Roman infantry. The theory proposes a remarkable odyssey that the Roman prisoners from Carrhae, sold east as slaves or military conscripts, were shuffled across empires for decades until this remnant ended up on China's western frontier, where they were finally captured and integrated into the Han Empire. The Chinese, it is said, settled them in a frontier outpost they named Lycian. This name itself is tantalizing, as Lycian was an ancient Chinese term for the Roman Empire derived from Alexandria. Could this town have been a literal little Rome on the steppes? The modern village of Zhejiang in China's Gansu province is identified by proponents as the possible site of ancient Lycian. Here, some residents have distinct physical features: lighter hair, green or blue eyes, and taller stature, standing out from their neighbors. In the early 2000s, DNA sampling of these villagers suggested a minority carried genetic markers common in Western Eurasia. When combined with local folklore of distant foreign ancestors, it creates a compelling narrative of a lost Roman community surviving at the edge of China. The visual evidence is arresting. Photographs of elderly villagers with light eyes and European-like features, juxtaposed with reconstructions of Roman soldiers and Chinese Han Dynasty cavalry. A map tracing the potential route from Carrhae in modern-day Turkey across Parthia through the heart of Asia and finally to the Gobi Desert frontier illustrates an epic journey of over 4,000 miles. Yet, for all its romantic appeal, this theory faces fierce and credible scholarly criticism. Geneticists note that the Eurasian genetic markers found are widespread and could just as easily come from the many other Silk Road traders, Scythian nomads, or earlier Indo-European migrations that passed through the region centuries before or after the Romans. Historians point out that the Chinese description of a fish-scale formation, while evocative, is not definitive proof, as other cultures used shield walls. The town name Lycian, while phonetically suggestive, might have a separate local origin. The most significant hole is the lack of any archaeological evidence in Zhejiang. No Roman coins, no fragments of distinctive Roman armor or weapons, no Latin inscriptions, nothing that concretely ties the site to a group of Mediterranean soldiers. The alternative explanation is simpler. The unique features of some villages are a result of the incredible genetic melting pot that was the Silk Road, a crossroads where for 1,000 years, genes and cultures from Rome, Persia, India, and Central Asia blended with those of China. The story of the Lost Legion likely ended in the harsh deserts of Parthia, where the prisoners were absorbed as slaves or soldiers, never to march again. The Lycian legend endures because it represents a breathtaking possibility, a direct human link between the two greatest empires of the ancient world, a secret thread of red cloaks and lamellar armor woven into the tapestry of the East. It is a story we want to be true, a testament to the unpredictable, winding paths of human history where a soldier captured in one desert could, through generations, find a home in another. The journey of a lost legion speaks to human movement across continents, but a single geological event can rewrite the mythologies of entire civilizations. The cataclysmic eruption of the Thera volcano around 1600 BC was one of the most violent events in human history, dwarfing even the destruction of Pompeii. This was not just a local disaster, it was a Mediterranean-wide cataclysm whose shockwaves may have echoed through two of the West's most enduring legends, the fall of Atlantis and the biblical Exodus. The island of Thera, the heart of the sophisticated Minoan civilization, literally blew itself apart. The eruption column is estimated to have soared 25 miles into the stratosphere, and the subsequent collapse of the volcano's core into the empty magma chamber triggered a tsunami of unimaginable scale. Computer-generated imagery reconstructs the horrifying sequence, the initial blast vaporizing the island's center, followed by a wall of water perhaps 100 feet high, radiating outward at jet speed across the Aegean Sea. Within an hour, this wave would have slammed into the northern coast of Crete, 70 miles away, scouring the coastline where the magnificent Minoan palaces and fleet were based. This direct physical devastation provides a compelling template for Plato's Atlantis, a powerful island nation with advanced culture and naval might, destroyed in a single day and night by earthquakes and floods swallowed by the sea. The Minoans, with their sprawling palace complexes like Knossos, their vibrant art, and their dominance of Aegean trade, perfectly fit the description of a brilliant civilization lost to a sudden, watery end. But the eruption's reach did not stop at Crete. The ash plume traveled southeast, carried by prevailing winds directly toward the Nile Delta, hundreds of miles away. Here, the theory connects to the Book of Exodus. The described plagues bear a chilling resemblance to the cascading effects of a massive volcanic event. First, the ashfall could have turned the Nile River a foul red, killing fish and fouling the water, the first plague. The dying fish and contaminated water would have driven frogs onto land, the second plague. The ash and subsequent climate disruption could have led to outbreaks of lice and flies, the third and fourth plagues. A pestilence on livestock and boils on humans could stem from water contamination and airborne bacteria. The dense ash cloud could have blotted out the sun for days, creating the plague of darkness, and even generated intense electrical storms, manifesting as hail and fire. The final and most dramatic parallel is the parting of the Sea of Reeds. The tsunami generated by Thera would have caused a massive withdrawal of water from coastal areas as the wave trough approached, potentially exposing dry land for a time, followed by a catastrophic surge that would drown anyone in pursuit. This natural sequence mirrors the biblical miracle with terrifying precision. The timeline, however, is the theory's greatest challenge. Conventional Egyptian chronology places the Exodus, if it occurred as a singular historical event, in the 13th century BC, roughly 300 years after the Thera eruption. Proponents argue that the oral tradition of the event could have been preserved and later attached to the story of a later political escape from Egypt, or that the Egyptian chronology itself might need adjustment. The power of the theory lies not in a perfect chronological match, but in the overwhelming thematic parallels. A single, earth-shattering event witnessed across the eastern Mediterranean could have seeded multiple cultural memories, each adapting the trauma to their own narrative framework. For the surviving Greeks, it became a cautionary tale of a proud island nation punished by the gods. For the Semitic peoples in Egypt, it became a story of divine intervention and liberation, where the very forces of nature were weaponized to secure their freedom. The ash layer from Thera is a geological fact, a stark line in the soil across the region. That line represents a day when the sky turned black, the sea rushed inland, and the world seemed to end. It is not difficult to see how such a day would be remembered forever, transforming from raw geological terror into the foundational myths of nations. From the cataclysm of Thera, we move to a quieter, more persistent obsession, a small island off Nova Scotia where generations have chased a dream of gold. Oak Island's money pit is a legend built not on ancient myth, but on 200 years of feverish digging, cryptic clues, and broken fortunes. The story is familiar. A boy discovers a curious depression in 1795, leading to a deep shaft with platforms of logs every 10 feet, a tale of a mysterious stone tablet, and booby traps that flood the tunnel with seawater. For centuries, this narrative has fueled a treasure hunt costing millions and claiming lives. Yet, the most compelling theory today is also the most deflating. There is no pirate loot, no Templar relics, no Shakespearean manuscripts. The money pit is likely a natural geological formation, a limestone sinkhole, and the entire treasure saga is a monument to human hope reshaping the land. The island's bedrock tells the real story. Oak Island sits on a foundation of porous limestone and gypsum, a geology prone to a specific phenomenon, the collapse sinkhole. Over millennia, groundwater can dissolve these soft minerals, creating underground cavities. Eventually, the land surface above gives way, collapsing into a funnel-shaped depression. To an 18th century farmer, such a hole, perhaps partially filled with water and debris, would look remarkably like a dug shaft, the so-called platforms of oak logs. They could be nothing more than ancient, fallen trees that tumbled into the sinkhole over centuries, their trunks settling at different layers as the cavity slowly filled with silt and organic material. The infamous flooding tunnels are the final, elegant piece of the natural puzzle. The island is surrounded by ocean, and its porous limestone acts like a sponge. Excavators digging below the water table would inevitably hit a network of natural fissures and water channels. The sudden, relentless seawater intrusion isn't a clever pirate trap. It is simply hydrogeology, the island reclaiming its equilibrium. Consider the alternative explanation of a tar kiln. In the colonial era, such kilns were common for extracting pine tar, a vital naval supply. These were deep, brick-lined pits where stacked wood was burned slowly. An abandoned, collapsed kiln could easily be mistaken for a mysterious engineered shaft centuries later. The charcoal and burnt material found at various depths would then be misinterpreted as signs of human activity related to treasure burial rather than industrial work. Diagrams of the island's cross-section are revealing. They show the chaotic jumble of over 2 centuries of excavation shafts, tunnels, and dynamite blasts crisscrossing the natural limestone and water tables. It is a geological lasagna mangled by human interference, making it impossible to discern any original man-made structure. The famed inscribed stone, if it ever existed, was likely a simple quarry marker or a natural rock with coincidental fractures, its reported translation a product of later imagination. The historical record offers no anchor for the treasure story. There is no credible document from any pirate, knight, or king mentioning a deposit of immense wealth on a small Canadian island. The entire legend rests on a chain of hearsay and anecdote that grew more elaborate with each new investor seeking funds for the next dig. The artifacts reportedly pulled from the pit, from bits of chain to parchment fragments, are the kind of mundane debris that could fall into a sinkhole over hundreds of years or even be planted, intentionally or not, by the frantic excavation work itself. This theory does not accuse past seekers of deceit, but of a powerful cognitive bias, the tendency to interpret ambiguous evidence through the lens of a desired outcome. Every log became a platform, every seepage a booby trap, every piece of scrap metal a clue. Oak Island's true treasure may be the story itself, a 200-year-old drama of optimism and engineering. It is a cultural sinkhole into which fortunes and dreams have poured, only to be swallowed by the earth and the sea. The island stands as a testament not to buried gold, but to the irresistible human urge to believe that just below the surface, a secret awaits if only we dig deep enough. Sometimes the greatest mystery is why we need the mystery to be true at all. The earth itself can swallow fortunes, but the human mind can unleash a different kind of chaos without moving a single stone. In the scorching summer of 1518, the city of Strasbourg witnessed a spectacle of pure, inexplicable agony. It began with a single woman, Frau Trophia, who stepped into the street and began to dance. Not a dance of joy, but a frantic, compulsive jig she could not stop. Within a week, dozens had joined her. Within a month, the number swelled to over 400 people, all convulsing in a ceaseless, exhausting frenzy in the city's squares. They danced until their feet bled, until they collapsed from heart attacks or stroke, some literally dancing themselves to death. For centuries, this was blamed on a curse from Saint Vitus or the effects of ergot poisoning, a fungus on rye that causes convulsions. Yet the dancing plague defies these simple explanations. Ergot poisoning, while it can cause spasms, does not produce coordinated, days-long dancing, and it would not explain why the phenomenon spread through sight and social contact, sparing those who were isolated. The true key lies not in the bread, but in the unbearable pressure crushing the city's spirit. Strasbourg was a tinderbox of despair. The region had suffered repeated crop failures, leading to severe famine and soaring grain prices. A wave of syphilis and smallpox swept through the population. The poor lived in crushing poverty, and religious anxieties ran high in the years just after Martin Luther's protests. The community was steeped in a belief in saints' curses, particularly the wrath of Saint Vitus, who was said to punish sinners with compulsive dancing. This was the perfect storm for a phenomenon known today as mass psychogenic illness, a physical manifestation of psychological distress that spreads through a group. The theory suggests that Frau Trophia, under unimaginable stress, may have entered a dissociative trance state, a psychological break where the mind detaches from the suffering of the body. Her uncontrollable dancing was not a choice, but a hysterical conversion of collective trauma into physical motion. In a community that already believed in a dancing curse, her behavior was not seen as madness, but as a terrifying supernatural contagion. Witnessing it, others under the same extreme duress subconsciously found a release, a socially sanctioned way to express their own unbearable fear and anguish. Their minds followed suit, triggering the same dissociative state, and the plague of motion spread like a psychic wildfire. Period woodcuts from the time capture the surreal horror, showing groups of people in the grip of this mania, their bodies contorted in relentless movement amidst a crowd of stunned onlookers. This was not a medieval oddity confined to the past. Modern medicine records similar outbreaks, from the laughing epidemic in Tanganyika in the 1960s to mystery illnesses in schools or factories where stress and a shared belief in a toxin can cause waves of fainting, twitching, or nausea with no physical cause. The dancing plague of Strasbourg is perhaps the most dramatic example in history, a stark lesson in the power of the mind under siege. It reveals that when hope evaporates and the world feels cursed, the human psyche can rebel in the most literal way possible, turning the body into a puppet of its own unspoken terror. The streets of Strasbourg did not hold a festival, they held a mirror to the breaking point of a community, where the only language left was a silent, desperate, and deadly dance. A silent, desperate dance is a language of the body under siege, but a language from the stars would speak directly to the mind. In the quiet of an Ohio summer night in 1977, a radio telescope known as the Big Ear was performing its routine scan of the heavens. It was listening to a narrow slice of the radio spectrum, a frequency band where the cosmic noise of hydrogen is naturally quiet, a band considered ideal for interstellar communication. On August 15th, the telescope's computer printer began chattering out a string of letters and numbers, a record of signal intensity. Volunteer astronomer Jerry Amon, reviewing the data days later, saw a sequence so extraordinary he circled it in red pen and wrote a single, emphatic word in the margin, WOW. For 72 seconds, the telescope had recorded a signal that was not just strong, it was perfect. It was a narrowband radio transmission, precisely the kind of signal scientists predicted an advanced civilization would use to broadcast its presence across the galaxy. It came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, and it was over 30 times more intense than the background noise of space. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished, never to be heard again. This was the WOW signal, and it remains the most compelling candidate for an extraterrestrial message in the history of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The theory that it was a genuine interstellar beacon rests on its uncanny properties. The signal occupied a single, very specific radio channel with a bandwidth so narrow it could not be produced by any known natural cosmic process. Stars, pulsars, and quasars emit radio waves across a broad spectrum, a messy roar. This was a pure, clean tone, a cosmic whistle. Furthermore, it matched the predicted signature of an artificial signal so perfectly that even the most skeptical researchers struggled to dismiss it. The leading natural explanations have all fallen short. Could it have been a reflection of a human transmission bouncing off space debris? The frequency, 1420 MHz, was supposed to be protected, reserved for astronomy, but no Earth-based transmitter operating at the time has ever been conclusively linked to the event. Could it have been a passing comet? Decades later, a hypothesis pointed to a comet's hydrogen cloud, but the comets in question were not in the telescope's field of view at that precise moment, and comets do not produce such intense, narrowband bursts. The signal's transient nature is its most tantalizing and frustrating feature. The Big Ear telescope used 2 feed horns, and the signal rose and fell over exactly 72 seconds, the time it took for a point in space to drift through one horn's view. This perfect curve proved the signal was celestial, not local interference. But why did it not repeat? The telescope returned to that same patch of sky over 100 times in the following months and years, listening intently. Only silence answered. This leads to a profound possibility that the WOW signal was not a continuous broadcast but a directed beacon. Imagine a distant civilization, perhaps around a star in the Sagittarius arm, sweeping a powerful, focused radio beam across the galaxy like a lighthouse. For one brief, glorious minute, that beam swept directly over our solar system, illuminating Earth before moving on. We happened to be listening at exactly the right place and the right millisecond in cosmic time to catch the flash. The original computer printout, with its columns of alphanumeric data and that iconic handwritten WOW, is a sacred relic of modern science. When visualized, the signal appears as a dramatic spike, a single, towering peak on an otherwise flat line, a shout in a silent universe. This solitary event forces us to confront a fundamental question about our search for cosmic neighbors. Is the universe filled with constant chatter we simply cannot hear yet, or is it a vast, quiet library where the most important messages are whispered only once? The WOW signal stands as a monument to that uncertainty. It is a single, perfect data point that defies explanation, a ghost in the machine of science that suggests we are not alone, but that the conversation may be infinitely more subtle, more fleeting, and more lonely than we ever dared to dream. A solitary radio signal fades into the cosmic background, but a different kind of silence haunts the vast Pacific, where the most famous disappearance in aviation history took place. The fate of Amelia Earhart and her navigator Fred Noonan has spawned countless theories, yet one stands apart for its chilling coherence and mounting, if circumstantial, evidence. It is the Gardner Island hypothesis. The idea is straightforward. After missing their target, Howland Island, a low and desperate Earhart turned south toward a sliver of land she knew from her charts, the remote atoll then called Gardner Island, now Nicumaroro. Running on fumes, she would have attempted a landing on the exposed coral reef that encircles the island at low tide. This was not a runway, but a brutal, skidding crash landing that could have left the Lockheed Electra damaged but intact and its crew alive if stranded. The radio calls heard for days afterward formed the first pillar of this theory. After her last known transmission, radio operators across the Pacific, from Hawaii to Florida, reported hearing faint, possibly authentic distress calls on Earhart's assigned frequency. Some signals even used her call sign. These were not mere static, but fragmented phrases pleading for help and stating they were on a line of position 157337, a navigational bearing that, when plotted, runs directly through Nicumaroro. If the plane's engine could still turn a generator, or if they had a hand-cranked emergency transmitter, these sporadic calls from a remote location make tragic sense. The visual evidence is stark. A map shows the intended flight path from Lee, New Guinea to Howland Island, a tiny dot in the ocean. Then a line veers south over 200 miles off course to the even tinier crescent of Nicumaroro. The island itself is a haunting place, a narrow strip of land surrounding a central lagoon, its reef flat exposed at low tide like a pale scar against the deep blue. It is here, on that reef, that the story turns to archaeology. In 1940, just 3 years after the disappearance, a British colonial officer exploring the island discovered a partial human skeleton, along with a sextant box, a Benedictine bottle, and the remains of a fire with bird and turtle bones. The bones were measured and sent to Fiji, where a doctor initially concluded they belonged to a tall male of European descent, leading to their dismissal. Decades later, those measurements were re-examined by modern forensic anthropologists who made a startling correction. The bone-length ratios indicated the individual was likely a tall female of Northern European ancestry, a description that fits Amelia Earhart perfectly. The original bones were lost, leaving only the measurements as a ghostly clue. Modern expeditions by the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery have scoured the island, turning up artifacts that whisper of a castaway's struggle. Among the thorny scrub, they found a woman's compact from the 1930s, fragments of hand lotion bottles, and most compellingly, a piece of clear plexiglass with the same curvature and thickness as an Electra's cabin window. They also discovered aluminum sheets that could be aircraft skin, and even a small, broken jar that once held a popular anti-freckle cream of the era, a product Amelia was known to use. Each item alone could be random debris, but together, on an uninhabited island along her last possible flight path, they form a pattern that is difficult to ignore. The final, sobering chapter of this theory explains the lack of a definitive conclusion. Nicumaroro is a brutal environment. If Earhart and Noonan survived the landing, they faced a hellish struggle. The island has no fresh water source beyond what little could be caught in leaves after rain. The reef is teeming with sharks. The heat is relentless. The evidence suggests a short, desperate battle for survival, perhaps lasting only weeks. The tides and storms that constantly reshape the atoll would have scattered the aircraft's remains across the reef edge, dragging them into the deep ocean trenches that surround the island, a watery grave for a machine and its final secrets. This theory does not offer a neat ending. It offers a scenario, a chain of logical missteps and desperate choices that ends on a lonely strip of coral. We are left not with a myth, but with a profoundly human tragedy, a story of incredible courage meeting the indifferent, immense logic of the Pacific. The artifacts sit in display cases not as triumphant proof, but as quiet, stubborn questions. They ask us to look at a map, to listen to the static of old radio logs, and to see not a vanishing, but a landing, and a long, silent vigil under a punishing sun, waiting for a rescue that sailed right past. 25 wild theories, each a keyhole into a past we are still learning to see. We have journeyed from the drowned memory of Atlantis to the silent radio signal from the stars, from the frantic dance of a desperate city to the quiet, stubborn clues on a Pacific atoll. These are not just stories, they are questions pressed against the glass of history, revealing the cracks in our understanding. Some, like the internal ramp of the Great Pyramid or the methane bubbles of the Bermuda Triangle, are grounded in solid science, offering elegant solutions to age-old puzzles. Others, like the crystal skulls or the lost Roman legion in China, live in that tantalizing space between possibility and legend, kept alive by a stubborn absence of proof. What unites them all is not their likelihood but their power. They remind us that our timeline is not a straight, unbroken line, but a tapestry woven with threads that have frayed, colors that have faded, and patterns we are still trying to decipher. They speak to a fundamental human trait, our refusal to accept a blank page. Where history falls silent, curiosity rushes in to fill the void with theories, with investigations, with dreams. So which of these 25 possibilities resonates most with you? Does the idea of ancient batteries or Irish monks in America rewrite the story in your mind? Share your thoughts below and let the conversation continue. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the shadows of history, be sure to subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. Remember, the past is not merely a list of dates and dead kings. It is the greatest detective story ever written, and we are all forever on the